Yeah, my name is Jerry Savage, and I appreciate the opportunity, Gerhard. I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in the United States. I'm not far from Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where I do all my work with horses. It's a wonderful facility there. It's about 30 horses on site. It's about 100 acres, um, and I will just give you a little bit of background on myself here, and I'll just go through this first couple of slides. This is the facility here, and you can see this is throughout the year. If it's nice weather, we like to do our presentations outside as much as we can, and this is just one of the courses we did in the fall, which was worked out really well. And so who am I? Oops, hang on one second here. I don't think think mine is a little bit frozen here. Just a moment. So anyway, I like to start out by saying I'm a Marine. I was in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, active duty, and then 6 years in the reserve. I actually got to ride horses when I was in the Marine Corps, believe it or not, when I was out in California. But my love for horses really started when I was a young boy in Maine. My grandfather had a farm in Skowhegan, Maine, and that's where I really started to learn not so much about riding horses or anything, but really learning how to take care of them and watch him how he interacted with horses. So I really my love for horses in general came from my grandfather. Um, I'm the father of three wonderful grown women who a couple of them actually one of them still rides. The other two got away from it. Um, and um, and I was in sales and leadership in the medical device industry for about 30 years. I started out in sales actually, in medical device sales, and then I got into sales leadership uh, in being a regional director, and then a vice president of sales, and then a president of the sales in two different companies. And my last position was an acting COO for a medical device company. Um, and just about 3 years ago, well, actually, I'm sorry, 4 years ago now, I went back to school for my PhD in leadership philosophy through Lancaster Bible College, which is a local college not far from here, actually about 30 miles away from where I live. And I started studying leadership philosophy. Um, it's been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. Um, and just to back that up a couple of years, in 2020, I had just written my first book called The Four Pillars of Sales. And I wrote that book, and the person that owns the stable, John of Stables, where I work out of, said, it would be really nice, Jerry, if you could start a course. And this is just a quick little story on how we got to where we are today. But um, so I started calling around and emailing, and I actually got to Gerhard, and Gerhard turned me over to Alyssa Aubrey in California. And I called Alyssa, and we had some calls with Alyssa. And then in October of 2020, I went out to Medicine Horse Ranch, and it was actually one of the most fulfilling experiences of my life, which brought everything together between where I was going with leadership, and which I later wrote in the book, The Janitor, which is my second book. It's about discerning destiny. It's about finding your life's purpose, because when you find your life's purpose, it's really you really don't have a job anymore. Uh, you you find your life's work, and so that has brought me full circle to equine assisted learning. I still um, do leadership sales and leadership facilitation. I consult with companies. I'm helping a company build their sales team right now. Um, but my real joy is to work with horses. I have a quarter horse that you see in the picture. Are you seeing the picture in the arena now? Um, That's Charlie, and that's my trainer. That's my trainer, Abby Gibson on the right. She does all his he's actually is a quarter horse, but he also jumps fences, and she does work with him for me on that. And I do most of my groundwork. As you can see here, we're just moving his back end around. Um, Sometimes he's a good horse to use for equine assisted learning, but most of the time I choose to use four other horses that we have on site, and it usually works out pretty good. Um, Taking Alyssa's advice from a few years ago, using about we end up using older geldings, which makes a lot of sense to me. And so that's me. And today's discussion, what are we going to talk about today? Hang on just one second. So today is discussion really walks into uh, transactional to transformational leadership. And in the process, what I really want to talk to you about and try to demonstrate as best as we can is uh, how this is a way to transform our team dynamics and create collaborative teams. That's what I strive to do as I work with Charlie and other horses and work with uh, the individual team leaders and teams when they come to the barn. So uh, a few weeks ago, I did a video which I think is on LinkedIn, and you can see it. I think Gerhard has it now. It's transactional to transformational leadership. And Gerhard, you have that video, correct?
Yes, I have it.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that's available. Transactional to transformational leadership. It's a good demonstration. I didn't show the video here today, but it's a good demonstration of that with Charlie working in the round pen. And so um, so transactional to transformational leadership. We're going to talk about defining authenticity and what that really means, and why authentic leaders can become transformational, and that's important. And in this, we'll define transactional leadership and define transformational leadership. So really, we can really that really begins to resonate with us, and how we can use that in our work as well. And and how can understanding the differences make us more effective facilitators? Um, so I want to take a step back for a second away from the equine world and take a look at this slide. If you haven't read anything from Patrick Lencioni, he's got a good book, a couple of good books actually, but the first one um, was um, was the Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And so as people come in to do a program um, at the barn, there are there are different things that come into play often with each of their team members. And so I love this pyramid because this is the basis for where you can start to build a collaborative team. And so when we talk about a high performing team, we talk about a team that has trust. Everything starts from trust. And we also, we talk about, trust when it comes to horses, horses looking for leadership. Is there trust? Have we built trust? Well, if you have trust, you can navigate conflict because conflict's always going to arise in a team. Um, one of the recent um, um, events that we did, there was a father-daughter team. They were part of an insurance company, and there was conflict between the father who owned the company and the daughter who was taking over, and you could sense the tension between them. And we really had to flesh that out, and it didn't actually come out until a round pen experience. But so you have conflict. There's going to be conflict within a team, but if you have trust, then you can navigate the conflict, and it actually becomes healthy conflict, and you need that. You absolutely need that. Um, And if you have that, then you have commitment. And then with those three ingredients, where you have trust, you can navigate conflict, right? You have real commitment, because if you don't have trust, then commitment is just lip service. People will tell you they'll do it or they're on board, but they're really not. Um, and then because of that foundational piece of trust that can navigate conflict, that fosters real commitment, and then you can have accountability both ways. Accountability in a team going both ways. So from the leader to the follower, back and forth, there is real accountability. And because of that, now you end up having a collaborative team, and you end up producing results that count. And so when people come to see me, and they come as a team, they really don't know what they want. A lot of them really don't know where it's all going to lead. Um, and then, but at the end of the day, you can see, and I'm sure many of you have seen it in your work, that things evolve through different exercises, and they actually become a team. Now, is it going to solve everything that day? No, but the aha moments that they have throughout the day solidify whatever aspect of it that they need at that particular point in time. And so that's why I find that this pyramid is so effective to look at. Trust, you have to have trust. If you have trust, you can navigate conflict. If you have both of those, then you have true commitment. And then accountability just shows up because of that. And that's how you can produce results. So, with that, as we talk about authentic leadership and transformational leadership, I think now it's important to define what authentic leadership really is. So, authentic leadership is comes from learned experiences. It's it's uh, rooted in awareness, transparency, and consistency. It's really being who you are. Now, I know we talk about in our program, coming back to our intuitive self and the masks that we put on. I actually did a podcast. I have a podcast called The Savage Edge. In the last podcast, the third, not this last one, the one before, which was actually my third podcast, was on unmasking the leader within you. And part of being authentic is unmasking that, taking that mask away. So as we all know, we create this, as we get older, we put in these safety nets, right? So that we can protect ourselves. But it goes on further than that. As you all know, social media is a big influence in every one of our lives today. We have to use social media, and um, and it's a curse and a blessing, because social media um, really allows people to wear that mask that they've always worn and hide behind it. And so the sad part about that is, because that's so safe, we never get to see the real you. We never get to see the person that you're meant to be, or that you have the potential to be, because you can hide behind that. But when you become authentic, um, and now I want to talk about authentic and authenticity, and put that into context. Now, not only can you become the best version of yourself, but your team members can see the best version of you. And this is how we're going to walk into transactional and transformational leadership. But so authenticity is the behavior of being authentic. So, in other words, so your lived experiences throughout your life, you've had experiences that have been good, that have been bad. Um, you've had memorable experiences that you call on. And in leadership, you use all of that. But sometimes when we're performing and not really leading, our followers don't get to see who we actually are, right? They don't get to see the real you. And so, as we know, because horses live in the present, and they they don't care what you look like or I look like or anything like that. What they what they will do is basically unmask the person that's hiding behind that. And now you become your true authentic self. And if we can lead from that, then our teams will um, will listen to us, will follow us because they want to follow us. That's part of authenticity. Now, authenticity doesn't necessarily mean that you have this outgoing personality style. Um, it doesn't mean that you actually it we'll talk about this in just a little bit, but it really doesn't matter if you have this outgoing personality or if you're an introvert or an extrovert. Authenticity has nothing to do with that. Authenticity is actually being who you are, so people can see the real you. And we know the horse unmasks that in our work. So I love the work by Bill George. Bill George was the uh, CEO of Medtronic, which is a big medical device company, one of the world's largest for several years. And Bill George wrote a book on authentic leadership. And that's another book that if you have a chance to get or write down, Bill George's book on authentic leadership is fantastic. And one of the things that I like that Bill George says is leadership um, is not about getting others to follow you, but about empowering others to lead. And part of authenticity um, is empowering others to lead, but more so when we get to transformational leadership. So authentic versus transformational versus transactional leadership. So I said just a few minutes ago that authentic leadership is lived experiences, and that's what Peter Northouse in his book Leadership will say, and Bill George has said that in his book, lived experiences. So that's the great thing about authentic leadership. We all have that, right? It's whether we can bring it to the surface and can we get back enough to our intuitive selves, or where we were when we were younger, when we were children, before we were influenced by everything that goes on around us. If we can get back to that in order to bring that out in our leadership, then we not only we're not only demonstrating authenticity, um, but people look at us as somebody that they want to follow. And it doesn't matter whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or charisma has really nothing to do with it at that point, right? Um, and then what is transactional leadership? Okay, so transactional leadership, folks, is basically a contract. Transactional leadership is like, hey, I'm paying you to do the job, you do the job, and you perform, and then I'm going to put some parameters into that. There's tasks involved, there's expectations. Not there aren't expectations in any company, but transactional leadership is just that. It's like, I'm going to do this for you. I don't necessarily like your leadership style. I don't necessarily um, want to be here so much, other than the fact that I'm getting paid and I know how to do this job. So that's the one side of transactional leadership. Although transactional leadership has a place, right? Transformational leadership is different. Um, Now, what I use to demonstrate transactional leadership with Charlie, for example, is a halter. And I said, okay, here's Charlie's halter. When I put this on Charlie and I lead him around, he may follow me, but does he really want to follow me? No, it's transactional. I'm leading Charlie around with a lead rope, and hopefully I'm not tugging on it too much, but uh, but that becomes very transactional. You can demonstrate pretty easily when you put a horse in a round pen at Liberty, um, and he begins to go around, and if people observing, especially people that have never seen this before, they say, well, okay, the horse is going around in a circle and this, but there's always a conversation going on. And the same conversation that happens between you as a leader, let's say if you're in a company, and between your employee or your follower. They're always watching you, just like the horse is always watching you in the arena. Um, they're always looking to see what's going on, and they're looking for clues. They're looking for clues to see whether they will trust you or not. Going back to Patrick Lencioni's pyramid, do I trust you? Um, and then, as we all see when we join up with the horse, when the horse walks towards us and will follow us, the horse has made that decision. So what I like to point out to people is that this is very transactional as we're walking into a round pen. I'm walking in and I'll make sure that everybody sees that video, but it's something that I think you've all seen before. But when you walk into the round pen, it's very deliberate. And Charlie's there, and I've got his lead rope on, and I take off his halter, and then he starts going around, and various things that we do, and then eventually Charlie will walk over, and then he'll follow me, and I make the point that at that point Charlie has made a decision, just like people in a business and in a team have to make a decision. Um, Obviously they want to keep their jobs, so very transactional at that point. They want to follow you, but at at the same time, if they choose to follow you, right? Let's take the guidelines, take the expectations out of it. If they truly follow you at that point, just like Charlie follows me out of the round pen, then there's a transformation that takes place. And there's that separation between transformational and transactional. And so while most people in leadership that have studied leadership will say, well, transformational leadership is all about change. Well, that's true. Okay, I don't disagree with that at all. But there's a change that occurs. So between transactional and transformational itself. Now, transformational leadership within a company means they bring somebody in and go, oh my God, this person's a change agent. They're going to change. And let's face it, change is emotional in an organization. Um, there's a pragmatic side to it, and there's an emotional side to change in any organization. So when you talk about transformational leadership, though, it's if people we can always if there's major change going on, first of all, we can go back again to that pyramid and say if people trust you, that change is going to create conflict, but because it's healthy conflict and because there's trust involved, people will stay committed, right? So that's a big deal. So the same thing when I go back to the round pen and this very subtle piece where Charlie makes that decision or your horse makes that decision to follow you. I would argue that that's transformation. That is, there's been a transformation from a transactional leadership standpoint to a transformational. And when you do that, that's where real progress is made. So what I like to see by the end of the day when we've done a course is that um, when people tell you about what their aha moment was, and when they tell you about that, they're telling you about the change that was made, the transformation that actually occurred that will allow them to move forward in their organization. And that's powerful and that's profound. Um, you know, I remember back to a course that we had, and there was this young woman, and she was leading the horse around. And, we usually, as many of you probably do, we ask them to, lead with intent and what is their intention. And she came back, and everybody gave a headline about what they saw. And when after that was done, we said, well, what did you think? How did you feel about it? Did that resonate? She goes, well, you told me to lead with intent, and my intention was that I was going to lead with confidence. And I was going to lead with confidence, not only lead with confidence, I was going to lead with love. And I'm like, oh my God, that was like huge, right? So, and the funny thing is, she had really bonded with this particular horse, Jack, and she goes, and Jack's a lovable guy. And at about that time, you couldn't have made this up in a movie. Jack kind of snuggled her, and it was a photo op moment for sure. Um, but I'm going to take it one step beyond that, because at the end of that day, this is where you can really demonstrate this, is that, so what was your takeaway from the day? And she said, well, my takeaway was that anybody can be a leader. You just have to find what your strengths are. So she found that. And so there was in fact a transformation that she never knew existed. I can be a leader. I have confidence now. Jack helped me with the confidence because he unmasked me. He basically, said, this is who you are. And I did it. I had enough confidence to do it. And now Jack's following me. Okay, I am a leader and I have found my strength. Now, that happens for different people in different ways, as you can see. So, but that's the difference between transactional and transformational, and that's perhaps how we can demonstrate it. And I know there are other ways we can demonstrate it, but I think that's important. Authenticity is important in leadership. Authenticity shows itself in equine assisted learning all the time, from the first moment somebody walks off and leads a horse, because the horse unmasks that person that is deep inside and that needs to come out in order to be the best version of themselves. The transformation happens when that bond occurs and you can actually see it, and you can actually see that take place. And it's almost like, um, it's a moment where it's almost like it's, I've heard this before and I love this phrase. It's in our moments of decision that our destiny is shaped. And so when we say that, transformational leadership will actually help us find our true purpose. I really believe that. So I'm going to move along here, and I'm also going to be able to take some questions here at the end. So if this is food for good discussion, then that's fantastic. I'd love to hear any interaction that you guys have and would like to share. So I think I've talked about this, the use of transformational leadership, but transformational leadership is also a way that you can elevate others, right? So when you when you when you do that, when you are demonstrating transformational leadership in whatever field that you're in as a leader, you're actually shining the light on other people. Your transactional leadership doesn't do that. In my opinion, transactional leadership is, again, just like that, a contract. But when you're being authentic, the true version of yourself, right? You're demonstrating authenticity, and you're leading through authenticity, and you're demonstrating transformational leadership. You're actually shining the light on those people that work with you, and that's why they end up following you. That's why they end up, if you're a leader, that's why they'll buy into the vision. That's why they'll buy into the culture. Um, and that's how eventually we can form collaborative teams. And when I bring people to the barn as a team, and we talk about the art of leadership and as team building and leadership, um, the first part of team building is bringing out who somebody actually is deep inside, so that they can actually participate in a way that they feel safe. So um, there is a book that I really like, and it's called Teaming, and it's Amy Edmondson, who's a PhD out of Harvard. She wrote this book called Teaming, and Teaming uh, is a book that talks about how to form collaborative teams. And psychological safety is a big deal. So when you get people that come to the barn to work with horses, while they present themselves as a team, they may not be a collaborative team. Not saying that they aren't, but they may not be a collaborative team. And one of the reasons they may not be a collaborative team is because they're not, um, they don't feel psychologically safe. And you can see that the leadership, the the style of the leader generally comes out, and the reason why people don't feel psychologically safe and they're not a collaborative team also comes out as well. So when people feel psychologically safe, when you've shined the light on them, they can trust you, right? Um, there's trust within the organization. There's trust that goes horizontally between team members. There's commitment. And then when you get into a meeting that's really important, then those people are going to feel safe enough to tell you what's going on with them. And you can see that too when people get vulnerable. We're doing a leading exercise, and people come back and start giving headlines, and they start opening up, and they start telling you what's going on with them. It's, they've really wanted to. So we've put them, at least in the time that they're at the barn, we put them in a safe environment so that they can do that. And if they begin to feel safe within their team because they develop this bond as we keep doing our exercises throughout the day, then all of a sudden you can see this newfound sense of collaboration. And that's important. Um, One of the things I want to move on to, and what makes leadership truly transformational. And I'm going to ask the question, is it personality? Is it style? Is it strategy? Or really is it something else? So the question is, does personality then inform leadership style? Now, obviously, you have people come and everybody's got a different personality. And I think I said early on that, personality really doesn't dictate whether you're a transactional or transformational leader. Um, so it personality is more like a lens, not a limit, right? So um, it shapes how we interpret challenges and how we handle things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way that we're going to lead with a certain style of leadership, right? Um, and one of the things I like about transformational leadership and being authentic is that if we actually do use use our life experiences and use leadership in that way, and we shine a light on other people, we're creating the next generation of leaders. And so that's another part that gets into legacy. And I think that um, transformational, authentic leaders who shine a light on their followers set up the next generation of leaders. And nobody said this any better than Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, where he talked about, the uh, good companies and great companies. And great companies were companies where the leader had created a culture that shined a light on, and these aren't his exact words, but shine a light on people within the organization, brought out the best that they possibly could be, developed a culture that encouraged not only psychological safety, but um, encouraged the um, encouraged bringing other people into leadership roles, so that when he left or she left the organization kept running and kept running well. Leaderships that depended on just one person, a patriarchal type of uh, of culture and leadership. When that person left the organization, the company started to falter. So by bringing out the best that we can in people through our leadership, not only our leadership style, but the way we actually lead, um, is demonstrated through the success of a company, for instance, long term. And that doesn't depend on personality style. Um, you've had great leaders that are introverts. You've had great leaders that are extroverts. I'm sure you've all looked at different personality styles. I actually put personality styles in my book, The Four Pillars of Sales. Um, and that um, was a book on sales and leadership, yes, but I also built personality styles into that book so that people could um, communicate more effectively in a sales call or in any relationship. Basically, it's adapting your style to show how adapting your style to the style of the person that you're communicating with so that they can receive the information in the way that they like to receive it. And I think that's again a topic for another day, but personality style and understanding personality styles is important. I don't want to underplay that by any stretch of the imagination. It's important to understand somebody's personality style when you're communicating. Um, and it's important because if you're not communicating with someone in the style that they like to receive information, then you could be potentially overbearing. And then the next thing you know, that person is ghosting you. They don't want to talk to you. Why? Because you were overwhelming to them. However, if you had approached it differently and approached it in a way that you could that they like to receive information, if you were a dominant style and you pared it back a little bit, then yes, they might have appreciated your style at that point. So um, so we're really looking through two leadership lenses. We're looking through transactional, and I didn't want to make the point that transactional leadership is bad, but the good things is there's clarity, there's roles, there's rewards, um, and it's very much goal focused. Not that other leadership styles are not, but transactional leadership is just that. Transformational, though, is where vision occurs, vision, inspiration, um, and it's very relationship focused. And so, going back to the Patrick Lencioni's five dysfunctions of a team in that pyramid that I showed you a little while ago, um, you know, building an organization and building trust and building teams is all about relationships. And that's why transformational leadership is so important. And that's why, as I mentioned, that subtlety about moving from transactional to transformational in the round pen with Charlie is demonstrating how now with trust, how people will follow you. But it's also what you do after that, because your followers in an organization, they're watching you all the time. So that's why you have to be authentic. That's why if you're not, as we know, just like the horse will unmask us very quickly. So when we look at authentic leadership from Northhouse, I just want to take a step back for a second. Um, it's inspired by self-awareness. Um, who am I? Who have I been? Who am I really? Right? Um, and am I being am I being my am I being my real self? Am I showing that to the world? And most of the time, as I mentioned back when I talked about social media, for instance, we're really not doing that in a lot of cases. You can hide behind that. The horse doesn't allow us to do that. And I think the most effective things for teams is bringing out their authentic self. And if your style of leadership, if you lead with authenticity and in a style that's transformational, if this is making any sense to you, then you can truly bring out the best in your team. So authentic leaders don't need to be charismatic. I said, personality style may inform, but again, it doesn't dictate, your style of leadership. You know, um, quiet leaders can inspire too. There's been presidents that haven't been really charismatic, but they really inspired people. Um, they uh, so you just don't have to be charismatic. Dominance does not equal trust, right? And performance will fail without presence. So this is what I love about what we do in equine assisted learning because horses will respond to energy, not ego. They don't care who you are. The most dominant person on a team may show up, and as you know, the horse unmasks them immediately. Um, they mirror our alignment or our lack of it. Um, I can remember when I was out at Alyssa's ranch in California, And I thought, well, hey, I'm an equestrian. This is easy for me, right? So I started leading Charlie, who's no longer with us, Charlie Blue Eyes. And I love that horse. But anyways, I started walking with Charlie, and Charlie stops and starts eating grass. I'm like, what's going on here? I'm an equestrian. I can do this. So I coaxed Charlie around in the circle and back, around. And we finally went around, and phew, it was great. And then one person said, "Well, I saw creativity," and Lisa said, "Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, he brought the horse around in a circle." And then another person said, came around. There was like two or three people that responded, and the last person said, "Well, I saw vision without action." And she said it really direct. It really hit me in the heart. And it's true. I had so many things going on. I'd written a book. I was working on my second book, and when I was trying to start these businesses, and I was all over the board. So I had vision, but I wasn't taking act. I was taking action. I was taking action all over the place, but not focused. So the horses, this is where I really came to realize that horses actually do mirror what's going on with us. And I've seen it time and again over the last 5, 6 years. This is my daughter, Natalie, by the way, who is she's got some traits with her that just resonate with horses so well. It's just amazing to watch her. But three leadership shifts, right? So, we have to when we start working with horses, when teams come, um, uh, we have to recognize that we have to lead from the inside out and let the horse be the mirror. And some people are reluctant to do that. And the one thing I often found was that I wanted to jump in, but you can't jump in. You just have to let it happen. And once it does, the conversation is going to come out after that. Um, and we all know this. And again, I may be repeating some things here, but are you leading from the horse will know if you're leading from authenticity. Um, the horse will know if you're performing right for a crowd or if you're being who you truly are. It's going to come out. And if you're in alignment, you're leading with intention, emotion, and action, right? Um, and those are all things are important. But the most powerful leaders aren't the loudest, they're the truest. And that's what I found comes out when you're moving from transactional to transformational leadership, right? The horse is going to follow you because the horse now trusts you. And that's where that commitment's going to start. I'm going to move on to a couple other slides. Um, and our work brings us back. You talk about the people that you bring to your programs, but I find this every day. If I'm having a bad day and I'm working with Charlie, he brings me back to the present, brings me back to my intuitive self, where I need to think, where I need to, where I can really see what's going on around me. Because I think sometimes the people that we work with, especially, you have to understand they're living in a vacuum. They're working. They're sometimes they have tunnel vision, and they only see whatever department they're working in, or whatever part of the organization they're in. And we have the opportunity to bring them out of that. And that whole piece that I talked about, from transactional to transformational leadership, is actually going to bring people out of that, bring them back to their intuitive self, create trust and commitment, as Patrick Lencioni said so eloquently in his book. But authentic leadership, authentic transformational leadership, and you can read about that in Northhouse's book, will truly create the next generation of leaders. And that's really what I want to see when I bring somebody to the barn and they're working with the horses, and the team, starts to loosen up, interact. And what I hope the leaders take away is that they have a true ability to create the next generation of leaders by shining the light on the individuals in their organization. And our work with horses is no better, there's no better way, in my opinion, to do that. I have 30 years in the medical device industry, and I've sat in boardroom after boardroom. I've held meeting after meeting. I've listened to keynote speaker after keynote speaker, and I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to tell you honestly, I'll put my hand on my heart. I can't remember any of it. Isn't that just a shame? But I can remember what happened the first time that I took an equine assisted learning course and somebody said, "Hey, I saw vision without action." You know what? That whole thing caused me to write a book, another book, by the way, called The Janitor, which was about a sales executive who um, who found his purpose in life. And finding your purpose in life is discerning your destiny. And that's how powerful horses can be, right? Um, and and when a leader comes out of our program and truly has that aha moment and can be present in the moment to see what's going around them with their team, that in itself, ladies and gentlemen, is transformational because that's where trust begins. That's where the commitment starts. Um, then they begin to empower those people, and that's where the growth begins, and that's how they become successful, and that's why they'll keep coming back to our programs. So this is my 1,200-pound leadership coach. I love him. And he I'm going to tell you right now, he lets me know it every single day. If I walk in and if I've got something else on my mind and it's not focused on him, um, he uh, he will tell me because Charlie thinks he's the leader, not me sometimes, right? Um, but he's non-judgmental. He's just reflecting back to me what I'm doing or not doing, and that's why learning begins in the arena with what we're doing, and it can transcend that. You can make it transformational with the people that you work with by just getting to them to the point where they understand that leadership on a daily basis, while it can seem mundane and transactional, can be transformational in the moment. And when that happens, people will follow you now and they'll follow you in the future. I guarantee it. So, what we need to do, we just need to listen to the horse. Get the hell out of the boardroom. Get into the barn. Get into the round pen. And things are going to be a whole lot better for teams. And the amazing thing is you all have the ability to do that. It's a special gift. And I want to thank Gerhard for inviting me to do this today. I hope it made some sense. Um, and if there's anything that you all would love to discuss, I'm happy to discuss it with you anytime. I'm going to put my contact information here on this last slide, and I'm sure it's on the website and everything. So honestly, I feel like this is a community and a team of people who are dedicated to making better leaders and creating teams that are really going to be successful outside of what they would normally do with any type of regular learning experience. And if there's one thing I've learned in my PhD program is that I don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers, but we can all learn from each other. So with that, I want to thank you very much for having me today.
That was amazing, Jerry. Really, really great. I hope that many people will watch it afterwards, and I will create some uh, reels or short videos for YouTube to get people to the YouTube page with this video. Thank you so much for your work.
You're welcome. I hope it was, let me just stop sharing here. Hope it was, I hope the message came across clear enough. There's just so much to put into, an hour that, I tend to jump around a little bit, but I'm absolutely happy to dissect any one of those interrelated topics with anybody at any time. It's just, it's leadership is an amazing thing. We say that horses seek leadership, but we as people seek leadership because there's not one person who ever became a leader that didn't follow another leader. And so I think we have to put that into perspective. Um, and what I found in every day, even yesterday, I got to tell you, when I was at the barn yesterday, just 2 days before, everything had gone perfect. And I was riding because I ride too, and I'm training. But it all of a sudden, my horse was looking back at me like, what are you doing? You're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And a couple of years ago, a couple of years ago, honestly, I never would have realized that. I would have said, come on, what's wrong with you? But now I go, wait a minute, what's wrong with me? And as soon as I do that, things get better. I mean, he literally turned around. If I could have put this on a movie video, it would have got 1 million views, because he turned around and looked at me like, said, "You are not doing the right thing." The look was, I could have added a few choice words with that look, but I won't do that. Hey, if you've got time, Gerhard, if you want to open up for questions, I'm happy to.
Yes, we can. Yeah, yeah. I've got time enough.
Well, can I just say thank you, thank you for being just a tremendous leader in your work, Jerry. This has been, like I said in the comments in the chat, I got chills as I was listening. Talk about ringing true. It was literally a bodily sensation. So thank you. Kind of like what we get from our horses. And I wonder, as you're talking, one of the thoughts I always have is how people carry that feeling forward when they leave, because it's such a feeling that we get from the horses. And then there's choice words that come out, the ones you picked out from some of the folks who have participated. But
Yeah.
on top of carrying forward and possibly having people return to reinforce what they've learned, I don't want to forget to ask you for the list of the books and the authors you referred to during the presentation. That was fantastic. And I just want to thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. That means a lot. That means a lot to me. Yeah, I'm happy to get you a list of all those books and more if you'd like. I think, we tend to read books on horse assisted education, which are good. A lot of great authors within our group that have authored really good books that I've read, and I'm sure you have too. But I think we shouldn't be afraid to go into the leadership literature, um, and read about the different styles. 'Cause what I found is in my journey through my PhD program, I all of a sudden started relating everything to how I work with horses, and it's like, oh yeah, oh that's true. I can do that. So a lot of what I do, as Gerhard knows, I post a lot on LinkedIn, and I'll just, simply, even if I don't have anybody there doing a course, I'll get in the round pen with my horse and Charlie, and we'll just and what's on my mind that day, whether it's building a collaborative team, whether it's going back to building trust, where it's the other thing that I'm going to do tomorrow, which came up yesterday, was have have you ever told your boss something without actually saying it? And that's what Charlie did yesterday. So I'm going to do that exercise tomorrow and record it. I put that all in context with businesses and teams, and my network on LinkedIn. Charlie's from a listen. If I put Charlie on LinkedIn, it gets hundreds of views. If where it might get a few from, but I like making that case. That's what I've learned in my leadership journey, as I said, with my PhD program, is that I start relating stuff that Bill George said, that Peter Nordhaus says, that all the other greats that have really talked about leadership and leadership style, and it's so easy for us, because then when people come in and we can learn to put that into context in a way where teams can start to grasp hold of it, um, then it's meaningful for them. They know that, wow, I'm out of the boardroom, I'm not there, and I'm actually learning something. I
Mhm.
try to be, I'm gonna get to your question in a second, but I try to be careful, and I think Alyssa taught me that, is not to tell people what to do. You can't do that. And
Mm.
a teacher there in the top in a classroom and tells you, about something. Um, Experiential learning is different. And it's the facilitation part of it is letting the experience happen and guiding it, and being self-aware enough ourselves so that we can see what's going on with the people and the interaction between the horses, and those subtleties when they come out, and by just placing the questions in the right place without being leading with the questions, all of a sudden people have these aha moments. And then you mentioned, how do they come back? Well, I had a PhD attend 2 years ago. She attended a course. She came in and she was leading this horse called Wow around, and Wow stopped, much like Charlie stopped with me. So, um, and then she wrote a really nice testimonial. And
Mm.
actually, this person became a mentor for me in my PhD program. She's a doctor, and and uh, and I can ask her today, and she will still say exactly what Wow taught her during
Mm.
that course, because she remembers it, right? And so that's what makes people, I think, want to come back. Now,
Mhm.
I think it's incumbent. I mean, if we have a business, um, to put that out there, I ask people, can I use that? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can use it. And but then when you bring it back around, you have to stay. It's like anything else. I find that this is a relationship business, just like our relationship with our horses, is that you have to stay in touch with these businesses, and then
Mhm.
the people that resonated with you, and then or that so that they want to come back, because if they come
Mhm.
back again, they're going to learn something else,
Mhm.
and they'll remember why they came first, and but they're going to find we're always changing and we're always learning. So, but by the next time somebody comes back in, they're going to learn something that they didn't learn the first time, or something new, and it just continues the whole journey. Um, what happens with people in life and in business is we get stagnant. We don't read as many books. We
Mm.
don't, because especially because of the internet. We let AI do a lot of work for us these days. But there's a book, Life is Tremendous, and I met this gentleman before he passed away several years ago. It's Charlie Tremendous Jones, and he wrote this book called Life is Tremendous. And the book, and he said, you'll be the same person you are today, except for the people you meet and the books that you read. And
Mhm.
as you be the same person you are today as you will be 5 years from now, except the people that you meet and the books that you read. That's the way it went. And you can take that, we can take that one step forward, or the horses that you lead. you know. So I don't know. Did I answer your question?
You gave me a lot of great, I mean, there's just so much packed in. It's like this incredible meal, when you're covering so much terrific ground. I was taking mad notes earlier during the presentation on my phone with my thumbs, believe it or not. But um, I just, I like to think, I've read or somewhere that, smells are the type of thing that bring us back to a memory. Um, I don't know. There's got to be the horses, that experience with the horses, which we all appreciate, obviously. I want that to be something that prompts people back to what they learned, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to maybe to when we wrap up. Of course, if they can learn more, we'd love to have them come back. Um, but in I I'm kind of speechless because
Well, there's, there's a paper that was out of Ohio, that I really like. What is her name? The two people, professors, wrote it out of a university out in Ohio. I'll, I'll get it.
okay.
Um, but they took a group of interns, and And it was like 5 years later, they still remembered exactly what they learned
Mhm.
from they, I mean, you don't really have to do anything, honestly. Don't,
Mhm.
I wouldn't, this is my honest feeling. I don't think you
Okay.
have to worry about that so much because everybody's going to take something different. And when
Mhm.
whatever they take from it,
Mhm.
the literature shows. I mean, I've been wrapped up in literature for years now, right? Okay,
Mm.
clinical stuff, but I will tell you that paper upon paper will tell you that the biggest thing about equine assisted learning is people remember what they learned 5 years later. However, they never forget it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a testimonial to that because I got that one phrase that somebody told me that hit me right in the heart that basically said, "Oh, okay, wake up, Jerry," you know? Um, and some of the things that will happen from equine assisted learning, honestly, is, I mean, I will tell you that the janitor book that I wrote, and Gerhard read it because Gerhard's in the book. And I had to ask him if I could mention him, and I mentioned Alyssa in the book too. And
Oh, good.
it's a some people have called it a biographical fiction, right? And it did go to number 14 on Amazon, and I'm not selling the book here, but I mean, I'm saying that because I was very humbled. We did hardly no advertising on it. The next thing you know, it just took off. And that's why I'm writing the second one. But it's about discerning destiny and people when, and so what I learned when I started on this journey to do equine assisted learning changed my life because it prompted me to go back to school for my PhD. It prompted me to
Mhm.
start my own business, prompted me to write another book. Um, so what equine assisted, if you take this even one step farther, and not for everybody, I'm saying, but I did this on my podcast the other day. My podcast is The Savage Edge. If you look it up on Spotify,
Mhm. Okay.
the last episode was on purpose, discovering your purpose, and what that actually means. And most of everything on the Savage Edge podcast, I equate to leadership and in equine assisted learning. And what I will say is that once you discover your purpose, you know what,
Mhm.
find your life's work, right? Because a job doesn't become a job anymore. And people actually, once that's where, not just with me or you per se or Gerhard, because we're actually doing, or anybody else on the call, because we're doing this,
Mhm.
it's that people can walk away from a course that we do and you can change their life because you discover something that they have, that they knew it was always there. You see,
Mhm.
everything that we're doing, we're just uncovering. And the episode before that, quite honestly, was unmasking the leader within. Because one of the things that I learned when I started doing this is we wear these masks and we don't allow ourselves to be who we really are. And once people allow themselves to do that, and they do that when they come to a course, it changes their whole outlook. They actually do become more present. We say the horses are present and they bring us into the present, right? But they actually do become more present. They see what's going on around them. So they'll try something new that they haven't tried before. And that leads them down another road that they never would have gone, but they're fully capable of doing. They just had it bottled up inside of them because society did that to them. Society, I mean, everything that we do in work, right? Um, there's somebody that's more dominant than you at work, and you kind of go, "Oh boy, I don't want to say anything right now." Or there's somebody in, people put themselves on social media, quite honestly, as the greatest leader and
Mhm.
sales coach or business coach in the world. And you go, "Oh my goodness, I could never do that." Well, they might be a little bit more process oriented than you are, or we might be, let's say, but that's okay. That doesn't mean and that you're any less of a leader or any less of a facilitator or any less of a business person than they are. They may not even be who they put themselves out there to be. So what happens is we become afraid to be who we really are. And when we're
Mhm.
afraid, when we hide behind that mask, which the horse brings out in a second, right? When we
Mhm.
hide behind that and we've hid behind it for years, we basically crush our potential and who we have the ability to become. So that's my
Thank
story.
you.
That's my story.
Well, I will say this. I never believed that if you find your purpose, you'll never work another day in your life until I became dedicated to doing this full time. And I will say the joy and the smile on my face that I feel when I'm going to do a workshop, it tells me I'm in the right place. And I just feel that's the feeling, that joy, that um, ability to be in that moment in your place is something I feel like we can help people achieve as well. So
Yeah.
there's a yeah.
Now,
Anyway.
where are you? Can I ask where are you located?
Yeah, San Francisco Bay. In fact, I started with Lisa. I went to Tamales Bay, and she referred me to a group. I was starting out. I had started out with Igala. I've been, a horse girl my entire life, which I recently learned is just a nerd with long hair. Um, and so I'm just fortunate. I left 35 years in the securities industry to do this. So I'm,
Yeah. Well, I can definitely relate to you. I was started out in sales. That's why, I talk about sales leadership, and my first book was The Four Pillars of Sales. But I got into executive leadership from there,
Mhm,
and 30 years in that. And you start to, what happens is you start, especially because we're so blessed to be involved with horses, you start to see things differently. And I think because of the fact that you were in business for so long, for instance, and I look at it, I look at myself kind of that way as well. You understand where people are coming from in their. I like to talk about all these people that are on the hamster wheel that are
mm,
growing real fast, and they're not getting it. They're doing their best, and but they're not getting anywhere because um, that's all there is, And I think once people
mm,
see that that they're capable of so much more, they'll do so much more.
mhm,
And I think that's a gift that you have because of your business that you can bring to this. I hope that's what I'm bringing to my business, and and when I can see that look on somebody's face when they have an aha moment, when somebody comes back to
mhm,
me, because I think what you know people often use legacy as a cliche too. Oh, what legacy and this legacy and that legacy.
mm,
Well, the biggest legacy I think somebody can leave to the next generation is something that you'll never see. And that
mm,
is
mhm,
that person somewhere someday is going to say that, you know, that I learned this from Gene. I learned this from Jerry. I learned this from Jerry Savage, and and you made a difference. So what happens is you made a difference in somebody's life.
mhm,
And I think that's the biggest gift we can give to the next generation of leaders, of business people, and people in general. And that's what I meant when I said we're shining the best leaders, the truest leaders. Don't need fanfare. They don't need to say, "Look at me." They shine the light on other.
mm,
And once you shine the light on other
mm.
people, you make them so much better. To me, that has become such a rewarding experience. That's all I need, honestly. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. It's a- You're welcome, and thank you for your comments. So that's wonderful. Looks like my screen is frozen, by the way, so I'm going to stop sharing my. I
It's
thought,
not frozen to us.
oh, okay, okay. Let me see. I can't unfreeze it over here, but that's okay. Um, does anybody else have any questions or any feedback or?
Hi, yeah, that was a privilege to be present at. Thank you very much. Really, really helpful. I have a question, which is, it's easy to take a horse into the boardroom because they just follow you, right? But how do you get the boardroom into the barn?
Um, your question, how do I get,
The boardroom into the barn.
yeah. So I can look at that a couple different ways. One is, how do I get people to come to the barn from the boardroom, the leaders of the
Yeah.
barn? Um, you know, so that is, sometimes it's a tough sell, sometimes it's an easy sell. If somebody's had experience with horses, they think, oh, this would be great, but they really don't know what they're in for because they've never experienced equine assisted learning before. They think everybody thinks of horses in terms of riding a horse, and I ride a horse, so they think automatically, oh, it's about riding horses. What I do in the media that I put out is I talk about leadership. And if you go onto my LinkedIn page, you can kind of see what I do that way. Um, I correlate the um, leadership experiences or experiences in leadership or business or in life in general with how horses bring that out in us and how the horse thinks versus we think. And I do that in my social media posts. Um, when I've had the opportunity to speak with a HR or somebody, um, we had an HR person to actually attend the course with her people, and she actually did a testimonial, which is on my website, and she said that um, I look she actually looks for programs that are different and unique because that people generally are caught up in the boardroom presentations, right? So if you're asking about getting people in general to courses to learn more about leadership or learn more about team building, um, when you talk about how this is something that the that they'll remember and how you demonstrate that, and you can demonstrate that through either using some of the stuff that I have, which you're welcome to use, or other people or other clinical papers that are actually written. I call clinical because I come from the medical industry originally. um, is that you need to be able to show people how it's not like some people think of it like how do I want to say this, um, not a gimmick, but as um, the newest newfangled thing. It's not. This has been, horses have been around for thousands of years, and horses can teach us a lot, and we need to be able to demonstrate to people that we speak to in positions of leadership in an organization about what it can do for them. So in anything, to get people out of the boardroom to the barn, is you have to identify what their pain points are. So think about for a second, what if I'm a manager or if I'm a leader in an organization, what could be one of my biggest pain points for my team? Do they trust me? One of the companies I had come out, it was trust, right? So do they trust me? You know, do do they speak up? Do I get enough feedback from my team? Or am I always assuming, you know, do I just assume that they're going to do exactly what I want them to do, but now we're not hitting quota? Why? So now if I can go back, and you got to ask those questions. And yeah, well, we're not hitting quota this quarter. And my next question would be, well, why is that? Why do you think? I don't know. My lead salespeople, it's always the top 80% that are doing top 20% that are doing 80% of the work. You know, why do you think that is? I don't know. My other people aren't good enough. Well, wait a minute. Did you hire them because you thought they were good enough? Yeah. Well, is there an underlying reason why? And so what you can move to from that point is, what if you could uncover what was really stopping your team from creating from being more productive? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, you said that 20% of your team is creating 80% of the work, right? Yeah, I did say that. Well, now what if you could take that other 80% and you could now make it 60% of those people that were doing the work? Not everybody's going to do it because you're never going to get everybody. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm not going to ask the questions, but I do have an equine friend that's going to ask those questions and won't even have to say a word. You're kidding me, right? No, what we're going to do is we don't ride horses or anything. We developed a program that was actually 25 years in the making. There's several hundred facilitators around the world. It's proven out in paper after paper I can give to you. That if you bring your team to the barn for the day, we'll develop an exercises tailored to your group that will help uncover the things that will make your team more collaborative, more productive. So that when you leave here at the end of the day, that you can go back and you can have those conversations because people will then have elevated trust. Um, they will they will feel like a more collaborative team. They'll talk more about the things that they need to do together to be successful. That's what equine assisted learning does. And I don't do that for you, ma'am or sir. Um, the horse brings that out because of just by virtue of who they are. What do you mean by that? Well, horses are always present. They're present in the moment. So you can't lie in front of a horse because a horse will see your people are telling you things right now of why they can't succeed. Well, competition is too stiff, or the products, we don't have the latest and greatest technology or whatever. Well, the horse doesn't care about that. The horse doesn't need that. All the horse will do is reflect back to them what's actually going on and bring out the things that you need to do as a team in order to be successful. And by the
So
time
can
you
I just break in at that point? Sorry, it's a great flow.
I'm sorry.
I just find that how do you soothe people into this fear that then comes up whilst you're talking to them that they're going to be found out for being useless? And it's all
Yeah.
over.
So you don't, that never happens. And I'll tell
Right.
you why that never happens. Because people give what they're going to give, right? And some people, some people will come up, well, here's what's going to happen. So you have a group of people and they're giving you their feedback, right? And they're telling you what they saw. And by the fact that they're telling you what they saw in this is because it's a no judgment zone, right? And you make
Oh,
that.
sorry, no. I'm meaning before you get them, whilst you're talking to them in the boardroom, before you get to them to the barn,
Yeah, okay.
there's a huge resistance to them going, oh my God, the horse is going to see right through me. And I don't want my team to know that I'm terrified that they're going to find out I'm terrified. You know? I
Yeah,
honestly, I had a bunch of
that's good.
military guys, right? So they're military guys, and there were 6 of them coming. And in the week before, 4 of them phoned up and said they weren't able to come, right? So without telling the rest of the team, because they didn't think that anybody would notice that they weren't there. It's like now 2/3 of your team are not coming, and you think you're a team, and you're in the army. Mm.
Well, so it's all about present. Thank you for that. And it's all about, and I give a clear picture now. I think I was going down the wrong road. And so it is all about how you present it, right? So you can't really say that the course is gonna unmask you and you're gonna be this vulnerable leader
Oh
that
no, I certainly wasn't saying that, but that was the impression that they got, because people go like, oh, horses, they can smell fear,
yeah.
you know what it's like. And
Yeah.
it's just, I hadn't said anything about that at all. It was like all positive, and this is going to bring out a better leadership structure, or just the way you are, individually. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, I don't have a magic bullet but what I have done in those situations actually is saying, first of all, I never say I never it hasn't come up where somebody said, well, I'm afraid because they're this, they won't tell you that. The manager won't, they'll kind
mm,
of tell you
mm-mm.
that. So, is it, you almost have to, I mean, I'm going to ask you, did you ask a question that said, you know, you know, about any reservations or about any fear that they might have or anything like that? I mean,
Oh, no, it wasn't really a conversation. It was more a message telling me they weren't coming.
okay, yeah.
So yeah.
So I think, like anything else, right? Because you're giving a presentation and you're really trying to sell, in other words, you're trying to sell the concept, right? When you think about it, right?
Mm.
So, um, and the way that I have done this in the past is like, um, I've asked questions, and before well, my last session that I did, I actually called one of the executives in the company that actually was instrumental in deciding whether to book the day. And she said, I am so happy you called because we have this, and this going on. And so what I did is, one, I made her feel really comfortable about what we were going to do. And I actually was able to tailor some of the exercises that we did. And I know that, and I was then, so then I was more aware. So nobody backed out. There was one lady I know that said, one lady was hell bent on backing out, and she didn't back out. And when she came, I have that testimonial somewhere too. And she was so timid at the end of the day when she said it, and she goes, I think I developed more confidence. And I'm like, oh, okay. But she was going to back out, right? Now, as far as unmasking a leader, I think that's always going to be an issue. I don't know. I don't have a silver bullet for you. I think it's a matter of, if it were me and I was running into that situation again, I think you do have to uncover things that might be a flag that would cause people to back out. It's kind of like, so I've been in sales for a long time, right? And in medical device sales. And you and what happens is, people love to do feature benefit. They love to tell you, okay, this is what this is going to do for you, and this is the feature, and this is this nifty feature we have, and this is what it's going to do for you. Or in this case, this is what it's going to do for your team. Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. But we never ask them, is there anything else that might be of a concern to you with doing this? Is there anything else that I can help you with that might be a concern for you or your team? Is there anything else that I can help you with that would prohibit you from, or would make you feel uncomfortable about doing it? So I give you an example. Like, I was with a sales rep one time, and we were in medical device, and we had a total knee replacement. And we were talking about this knee, and he said, yeah, I want to use it. I'm like, great. And we thought, from that point, he thought, okay, the physician's going to use this product. Well, he never used it. And then he goes, well, I can't get him to use it. I'm like, well, what's the matter? He said he was going to use it. Well, I've got a meeting set up with him. So we went to see him. And so we're talking the tough questions. Well, was he ready? When did you want to book your case? And all of a sudden he just said, you guys just don't understand how difficult it is to make a change like that. And I'm like, wow. So we never asked the right question, right? So with regard to what we do in our work, and how do we find a way to ask people that might have some trepidation about doing it to make them feel comfortable, And I don't think you're always going to find that out. But I think I don't think you want to just bring up things to try to, uncover things just for the sake of uncovering them. I think you just want to find out, is there anything at all that would make that anything at all that you would feel that you feel uncomfortable about? No, great. Or, well, if they tell you something, and then you have to be able to answer that. It's like an objection to something, but I don't think you can I don't think you can totally, I don't think you should feel bad about it. I don't think you can totally eliminate any of those things. But I think over time, I don't know how long you've been doing this, but I think over time, I think we develop a confidence ourselves, and a way to answer those in a way that address the issues that come from different people, because for one reason or another, Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It's for me, once they're in the barn, easy. I mean, the whole thing,
Right.
just like, oh, fantastic. But I have in the past had to trick people to get them to come. And then, the feedback afterwards is like, oh my God, thank you, Caroline. That was the greatest gift. Like, they were expecting If you told me they said, if you told me what we were doing, I wouldn't have come.
So speaking of the military people, just real quickly, because I think Jane has a question, but here's the thing, right? So we were doing this course, and this woman says, my brother just got out of the army, and he actually he was working at the college, the army college. And I'm like, oh, great, that would be fantastic, right? Bring him along, absolutely. So he comes along, and be careful of the questions you ask. And I had just started doing that. I think it was 2021. I think we were doing this one. And he said, and I said, because I didn't know the guy, I hadn't talked to him. And I said, well, so how's it going this morning? He goes, well, yeah, I learned how to brush a horse. And I'm like, it was very negative, right? And then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do exactly what you said. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm gonna let this all play out. I'm not gonna try to push it in one direction or the other. And at the end of the day, he came up to me, and I was expecting him to say, I learned how to brush two horses. No, but he walked up to me and he goes, Jerry, he goes, I gotta tell you, he goes, I had no idea. Like, what do you mean? He goes, I had no idea. He goes, that, and he started to tell me what he had got out of the whole thing. And I'm like, and I felt so good after that because I was caught off guard when he said, well, like so far I learned how to brush a couple horses, you know. I'm like, okay. So I think the answer is you're never going to get everybody there. Some people are not going to come. When they do come, I think it's incumbent upon us just to trust in the process. I think Alyssa told me that years ago. Trust in, and I think that's um, as people that have been in leadership and in roles, we want to dictate the process. And no, we have to. In this case, we have to work with our horse partners and trust in the process. And if we trust in the process, it'll come out right every time. Now, as far as getting there, I don't know, that last slide that I had, maybe we could put the horse in the boardroom and start from there.
Yeah, exactly.
But Caroline, I appreciate your question. I don't think I did a great job answering it, but I could sense I could sense your frustration from it, and I share that with you. And if there's anything that I come up that's any different or better, I'll be sure and pass it along to you.
It's a tough one, isn't it, when it's an experiential thing, finding the words to get people to understand that, because yeah, all of them at the end are just wowed by the experience that they've had.
Yeah.
It's persuading them to come and have that experience is the challenge, I find.
Experiential. So I think we're all kindred spirits here for a reason, because I'll say I have a touch of ADHD for sure. But I have always done better through experiential learning, and I never realized. And for me to sit down, don't ask me how I got through 3.5, almost 4 years of a PhD program, because I mean, reading, but now I do read regularly, but I learn best by experiential learning. So when I'm walking through something, even if it's just me and Charlie in the round pen, I'm learning something. And then once I learn it, I can disseminate that information all day long to somebody because I internalized it, right? And I think that's the key. And that's why people remember when they've had the aha moments and they've had it with the horse. You just don't forget it. Because now it's internalized. It's like your favorite song at a certain time in your life. Something goes on and a song comes up and it goes back to that certain time. Well, the horse does that for you instantaneously all the time. So all the time, if you're on a certain topic, if Charlie's going around the round 10 and I'm talking about trust, or if I'm talking about something from a leadership paper or anything, I'm telling you, this probably sounds corny, but I'm talking through it, I can go out and next thing you know, I can talk to anybody about it for an hour because now I've internalized it. And it's unfortunate that people that don't come and the people that back out will never feel that, will never get that. Maybe the people that do come will convey that to those people and they'll come the next time. Or if they feel uncomfortable about it, just offer them to come out one-on-one.
Yeah, I like one-on-one.
I
Yeah.
have a thought. While you guys were chatting, I was Googling to confirm what I have inserted into like an introduction when I do the groups. And now I'm thinking it could apply to that situation, how you get people, how you get the attention of these managers, these decision makers about why would horses be successful? How could they help my team be successful?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I read it somewhere, I can't even remember, but you can Google it all over the place, that horses have been around. Well, the Dawn horse, 45, 55 million years ago, right? The modern horse came about where they actually formed herds 2 million years ago. And relative to humans, we've been around, modern man has been around 300,000 years. So when you talk about uh, the success, you can't argue with the success of horses who living in community as a team, you could say, in a herd, being present, how successful they've been at surviving. And
Mhm.
I feel like that, because I was going to refer to herd experience and observing horses and how that works and how they communicate, that might be something that catches someone's attention when they're trying to connect dots between, what's like the latest, greatest type of therapy or, team exercise. I just feel like the horses provide a unique but very real way to help people with success as a team.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's no question about that because um, in business today, um, team building is a huge thing, but the a successful team, as I mentioned in the presentation, Jane, is that um, you're not you don't fear conflict anymore.
Mm.
Yeah.
You- Not that you want to have a fight with anybody, but you have to have conflict within a team because um, then you have that demonstrates one that there's commitment and that now that then you're focused on solving that issue and you can do it together because you've got trust
Mhm.
and people are accountable to each other and you can see that I can think right back to a exercise where we've all done, right, where you've got you're doing somebody up front leading, somebody behind, and people on either side, and you're going around the course, and then um, and you can see people actually having to work as a team where maybe they called themselves a team before, but they never had to work because they were all in their particular silo
Mhm.
at work. Now they've got this horse that's they're going through this course with, and they're having to make adjustments and they're having to watch each other and see what's going on. And that's a great demonstration. One, as you said, about horses survive, but that's that's a great representation of how a business survives and a team survives because without a collaborative team effort, businesses are successful short term and they're only
Mhm.
successful because they might have a niche or something like that. But as soon as that is gone, and the competition comes up and meets or exceeds what they have, it's only the people that have developed a true collaborative relationship and can work as a herd and work as a team
Mhm.
will
Mhm.
survive long term. And so I think that's what we can demonstrate in a day, what somebody in a lecture for 2 hours, and then saying, thank you very much. I'll take my keynote um, compensation and I'll see you next time. Because nobody will remember it.
Mm-mm.
Well, this has been amazing. I truly appreciate all of your feedback, all the conversation. It's good to know this is such an organization, and I don't want to patronize Gerhard, but I'm just so thankful that he created this so many years ago, and it's continuing to thrive and it's growing. and I bringing so many good people into it. And I think truly, Gerhard, if I can say this, I think you're playing a major role with the facilitators around the world in creating the next generation of true leaders. And that's profound.
Yeah.
I truly believe.
It's been amazing having these Zoom talks because it's one of those things we're all so widely spread as individuals. There's kind of, it gives you such a lot of confidence that other people are facing the similar issues and we can talk stuff through, and it just gains energy by doing this. I personally am really, really grateful. I wish we could persuade people to manage to change their day to get on the calls, because there's a lot of members and only this many of us, and that was such a great talk.
Fantastic.
Come on, guys.
Come on.
You guys
conversation
are too kind. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
It's
That's
very
great,
valuable.
Nosy.
Thank you. A lot of people watch the film after,
Yeah.
but it's a conversation, isn't it?
And
Enough.
we'll have 6 more.
We're going to run straight into the next one.
Yeah, tomorrow it's Alvaro's turn, and that session will be in Spanish. So we have English subtitles for the beginning, and then the session will be in Spanish. But I think Zoom is able to do a transcript in English or German or whatever.
Well, I'll try to get on as many as I can, so that'll be great.
Good old AI, eh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Fun. See you again.
Thank you, Gerhard.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Bye,
Nice to meet
guys.
you.
You, Jane. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.